Welcome back to the channel. My name is Patrick Walsh, the founder of Publishing Push, and in today's video, I'm going to talk with you about how to start your book, but also how to write your book and how to make sure that you finish your book. So this video began as a relatively simple how to write your book, and then it evolved into the whole process, how to write, start, and finish. I hope you enjoy today's video. I've poured a lot of time into this, so it should bring you some substantial value if you are looking to write your book, finish your book, you're in the process of writing your book, perhaps you are stuck in the dreaded middle. So before we get into it, if you could please like the video, it really does help to ensure that more people see this content, more authors see this content. Most importantly, do comment below if there are any areas in particular you'd like me to elaborate on. If you have any questions, we love answering author questions in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't done so already, and make sure to turn the notification bell on. If you don't have the notification bell turned on, then you won't actually get notified when we upload new videos, so make sure to go ahead and do that. Also, if you haven't done so already, do take a look in the description. We have a number of free author resources such as book marketing guides, legal guides that we provide completely for free. So go ahead and check those out. Okay, let's talk about how to write your book, finish your book, and create that masterpiece you've been trying to finish. The first thing you need to do is to establish a writing space. So make sure that you give yourself a clear and dedicated space, whether that is in your house, in your bedroom, if it's at a particular coffee shop that you like to go to. Just make sure that you have a dedicated space and somewhere where when you are sat there, it's time to write. You have to block out other distractions and really just give time to your writing. And there's no better way to do that than to have a space or somewhere you go, and that time is then dedicated to your writing. Okay, the second thing you need to do is you need to pick your writing tools. So you need to decide, are you going to write this in Word? Are you going to use Google Drive? Are you going to use Grammarly as you go to make sure that your writing all makes sense, that it's picking up on your errors as you go? Really sit down and think about the tools you're going to use. If you're not signed up to our emailing list, make sure to head over to our website, because bi-monthly we send out an email newsletter where we feature some of the best writing tools available, and most of them end up being free. So if you haven't done so already, make sure you are subscribed there. When we talk about writing tools, it could even be something as simple as a nice desk or a comfortable chair. It's really just about making sure that wherever you are doing your writing, you're comfortable and you can stay focused and you have everything you need to get on with your writing. The third thing that you're going to want to do is to break down your project. So of course, writing a book can seem like a mammoth task. Often the phrase used is, how do you eat an elephant? You have to break it down bite by bite, chunk by chunk. Not the best analogy, but you get the idea. You can't eat an elephant in one sitting, and the thought of it would just mean you never start. And that can often be the problem with writing a book, is you need to break it down so it doesn't seem like this enormous task. Once you know step by step what you're going to do, then it will be much simpler to get started. Number 4 is to make sure to settle on your book idea. So how do you find your book idea? The best way to know if you have a good idea or you're passionate about this idea is if it's an idea that you just can't forget about. So if you just can't seem to forget about this idea, it's just constantly on your mind, you're constantly talking to your partner, your friends, your family about this idea, and the idea just keeps growing and growing and growing, then that is the idea that you want to work on. Really, it's an idea that you just can't forget. You have to work on this idea. Those are the ideas that you really want to be going forward with. Number 5 is to outline your book. So if If you've been in the writing community for some time, you've probably heard there are outliners and then there are pantsers, as they're called. What pantser means, if you're not familiar, is it's simply someone that writes by the seat of their pants. So they're constantly making it up as they go. Stephen King is probably one of the most well-known pantsers, as they call it. And so an outline is something that I personally think is essential. I work really well when I have it written down. I know the steps I need to take. If I was to approach writing a book through the pantser method, it would just never work for me. Even if I'm writing a small article or a blog post, I am writing, here are the intro bits, here are the other bits I want to cover, and here's how I'm going to end it. Of course, just in rough detail, and it is just an outline, and it may change as I go, but I need something to help me structure it, a plan in place, and something to follow. Another important point on outlines is that if you are looking to get an agent or a publisher, then an outline in fiction is not a must. A synopsis, will do, but if you are writing non-fiction, then you must have an outline. Agents and publishers won't go near it unless you have an outline. They want to see clearly what you're going to be writing about and what these steps are. So that's a top tip. Finally, a really useful anecdote on this section is if it's boring to you, your reader is asleep. And I think this is a really important point when you're thinking about the setups and the payoff. You need to keep building that tension. We'll talk about this a bit more later on in the video, but you want to be thinking about that in your outline for how am I going to build the tension? Where are the points where I'm building the tension? Because you have to keep hold of this reader. You have to keep them wanting to continue through the book. So this is going to be point number 6 about how to write and finish your book. One of the biggest mistakes we see is not planning your book or not planning your time or scheduling your time to write. So we spoke earlier about having somewhere where you go and write, but what I do is I have in my calendar, I block out time in my calendar and I say, these are the times, these are the dates I am writing between 9 o'clock and 10 a.m. is writing time. And I turn off, phone goes down, I turn off notifications, email, all that kind of stuff. It's on do not disturb, and that is my writing time. So whether you're doing that in the evenings, weekends, whenever it is, you just need to block out that time in your schedule. The other really important point is to set yourself a deadline. So most authors don't set themselves a deadline. If you have a publisher and they've given you an advance, then they will be setting this for you. But as an independent author, why not set yourself a deadline? Because it's going to force you to have something to stick to, and it will just mean that when you have that date in mind and it has to be finished for then, well, then you're going to have to make sure it gets done for that date. So get yourself someone, an accountability buddy or someone that you can work with who's going to hold you to that deadline if you're having trouble holding to it yourself. And actually comment below if you'd be interested in us setting up accountability buddies. If you're trying to finish your work and you're trying to get a book finished, we could potentially pair some people up with accountability buddies. So comment below. If enough people are interested, we'll look into setting something like that up. In order to have this writing time, you might need to sacrifice some other areas of your life to get the writing done. So it might mean that you miss a few social events. It might mean you can't go out to eat. It might mean that you only go to the gym 4 times instead of 5 times. I'm not saying you should, sacrifice your health for your writing, but you get the idea. You're going to have to sacrifice here and there in order to make sure that you get this writing done and you stick to your deadline. Point number 7 is all about research. So you need to make sure that you are conducting research. And this is obvious when it comes to nonfiction. We always think about research in the context of nonfiction, but you need to make sure that you are also doing research for your fiction. You're not going to want to show off this research in your book, if you like. So what I mean by that is you don't want the reader to be aware of how much research you've done. Where the research shines through is where you reference a weapon or a location, or if it's a historical fiction novel, you're referencing a time period in history and you clearly understand when that time period is. Believe me, readers who enjoy a certain genre or certain topics are going to be hot on this. So if there's any mistakes, they will pick up on it. So make sure that you do your research. Tip number 8 to make sure that you finish your book and that you get off to a great start when writing your book is that your first line is so important. That first line, do not underestimate how quickly someone is judging your book based on that first line. So not only when we think about just getting someone to read a book in general, are we thinking about the cover, the blurb, the next thing they're doing is they're opening up the book and they're looking at that very first page. And the key thing they're looking at is that first line of your book. So you have to capture their attention with that first line. So let me have a quick look and I'm going to read the first line from George Orwell's novel. We're all familiar with his novel 1984. So let me read this to you and you'll see what I mean. It was a bright, cold day in April and the clocks were striking 13. That line sets things up so well for us to be intrigued, to figure out why is that important, and the ominous nature of the number 13. So there's so many things just in that first line that capture and pique our interest. So really do think about that. So there's a few ways you can structure that first line. That first line wants to be surprising, or it wants to be a dramatic statement, or philosophical, or poetic. So those are really the 4 that you want to be thinking about when you're writing that first line. If you're struggling with your first line, leave a comment below. We'll take a look. We'll give you some feedback. Point number 9 is that you want to fill your story with tension and conflict. So it's contrary to our everyday lives where really we don't want constant drama, tension, conflict. We would like things to go smoothly. When it comes to writing and it comes to stories, this is where people go for tension, conflict, drama. They want that. It's what keeps them turning the page. And it can even be down to things that are really, really mundane, even in your book. So for example, one character could say, "Oh, what a beautiful morning." And the other character might reply with, "Well, you would say that." And you can see there that there's immediately tension. Oh, why would that other character have picked up on that? Seems like, there's already tension. What's going on here? It pulls you in so that you figure out what's going on between these characters. Why is there tension? If it was just a statement of, "Oh, what a lovely day," and they said, "Yes, it is," there's not much to pick apart there. So you need maximum tension. That's what's going to pull people through the novel, pull readers through the book. That, of course, works really well for fiction, but what about non-fiction? So with non-fiction, this is where the setup and then the payoff is really, really important. So you're constantly setting the reader up to say, "I'm going to give you some information, here's the payoff," or "I'm going to teach you how to do this, here's the payoff." So that's the equivalent in non-fiction. Number 10 is the age-old classic of write drunk and edit sober. So just get the words down on paper. So don't worry about it being perfect. Silence that inner critic, put that to one side, just get the story down, get all your thoughts down, just write and write and write. Really don't overthink it, and then you can go back later and edit. So this is the number 1 reason we see authors delayed with their books or not finish their books, is they get too caught up trying to edit as they go, when really they want to just get the story down. Editing can come at the end. Number 11 is all about the marathon of the middle. We often get stuck in the middle of the book. The middle is the hardest part. So you've written the exciting beginning, you've reeled the reader in, and then you've got that ending in mind, the big finale that you just want to get to now. And the middle is often where authors get marooned, they get stuck, things don't move forward there, and that is where books die. And there are so many manuscripts that get abandoned at the middle stage. And the reason is that is the hardest part of writing. So what can you do to push through that bit? Well, really, that's where an outline is going to help you. So if you have an outline and you know where you're going and you've written down those steps, that's going to help you get out of no man's land. The other thing that you want to do is go back to the fundamentals of building tension and building those setups. So keep building on that tension, keep adding more and more of these characters. Things are getting worse, the stakes are going higher all the time, and that's going to help pull you through that middle bit. So the more exciting you make that middle bit, the easier it's going to be to actually get through no man's land, get to the end, and get to your finale. Your ending is what all of the readers are of course going to remember most vividly about your book. So this is the 12th tip, and what you really want to be thinking about here is a grand finale. Imagine you've been to a play, the curtain comes down and there are floods of applause. It's so noisy, people have enjoyed the play so much. This is what you want for your book. So you want the ending to be incredibly emotional. You want to really capture the reader, and just give them something just completely incredible. So even if your ending takes up as much time as the other 2/3 of the book, as the rest of the book, that's absolutely fine. This is so important, and this is what's going to make them go and tell friends, family, and other people and recommend your book. And the final tip, number 13, is to become a ferocious self-editor. So you've written drunk, you've got your book finished, you've gone the whole way through, which is an amazing achievement in itself, and now starts the editing process. So you want to be ruthless with that red pen. You want to go through and you want to eliminate anything that isn't absolutely necessary. You want to keep it concise, make sure you haven't waffled, and give the most you can, get the most you can out of that book. So editing is hard, but that's really what's going to separate you from other writers and put your book in the best possible position going forward. Once again, I hope you have enjoyed the video. This one was great fun to make. I really enjoyed it. Comment below with any of those tips that you would like us to elaborate on. Maybe we'll do standalone videos on some of those tips and do some deep dives on them. Once again, comment below with any first lines that you are working on at the moment, and we will certainly give you our feedback. We might even do a video where we go through and give feedback. We'll keep it anonymous if you want, or we can mention your name. But yeah, if you liked the video, then please do give it a like, make sure to subscribe and turn that notification bell on. See you in the next one.